Hello, everyone. So I'm here today to talk to you a little bit about substance use. And my name is Jackie Evans, and I actually work for Alcohol, Drug, and Gambling Services. So we're going to talk about substance use and nutrition. And I'm going to pass it over to Michele to introduce herself.
Hi, everyone. I'm Michele McDonald-Werstock. I'm a registered dietitian here at the Hamilton Family Health Team and a nutrition coordinator as well. So today I'm going to be talking a bit about nutritional needs and substance use disorder. We have over 67 million Canadians living with mental health conditions, and of those, 8 million live with substance use disorder. And research is starting to show that what we eat is very important, not only for our physical health, but for our mental health as well. And in fact, a healthy diet can be protective of many mental health conditions, and an unhealthy diet may be a risk factor. In particular to substance use disorder, we see some changes that happen in the gut due to the alcohol or drug use starting to affect the microvilli in the intestine and impairing absorption. So you actually end up with higher nutrient needs. Often over time, alcohol and drugs can displace nutritional intake, and that can lead to malnutrition. And we often see many different nutritional deficiencies, some of which are listed here. And in addition, malnutrition in some of the research is showing that malnutrition may promote drug seeking and impede recovery from substance use disorders. As well, many people living with substance use disorders also struggle with other mental health conditions that we need to be mindful of. So how does the diet affect the brain? So there's many proposed mechanisms, but in particular, the nutrient basis of building neurotransmitters is one of the key mechanisms. Nutrition is also important for reducing oxidative stress and inflammation, as well as part of cell structure in brain cell membranes, and very important linked with the gut microbiome. And there's growing research in that area showing the benefits and interaction between the brain and the gut. So what are some of the key nutrients for optimal brain health? You can see there's quite a few listed here, and we're going to go through some of them today. In particular, protein, we're going to highlight some of the deficiencies we commonly see in the vitamins and the minerals, as well as the importance of carbohydrates. So when it comes to brain neurotransmitters, you can see that amino acids and protein are really important for building brain neurotransmitters, but not in isolation. They actually do require carbohydrate. So adding a fruit, for example, a glass of milk to a meal gives the body natural sugars that can actually help an amino acid like tryptophan be absorbed and actually create serotonin. Tyrosine is an amino acid, and vitamin B6 are two nutrients particularly important for producing dopamine. And when it comes to substance use disorder, there does seem to be a depletion of dopamine over time from high alcohol or drug use. And so this is something that's of particular importance to this talk today. Some of the deficiencies we commonly see in substance use are vitamin D3, very common deficiency in Canada, associated with alcohol use disorder, as well as depression and falls. And that's because vitamin D is quite limited in our food supply. And really in the winter months here in Canada, we get very little exposure. Yet some of the research is really showing some interesting progress that when you give someone a supplement of vitamin D, you can actually protect against the dopamine depleting effects of drug and alcohol, and actually may help to reduce cravings. And so we do recommend supplementation of 1,000 international units of vitamin D3 daily, and sometimes we go even more. In terms of B vitamins, quite a few deficiencies we see in substance use disorder, and again, linked with increased risk for depression. So vitamin B1, also known as thiamine, very important that we have additional vitamin B1 if someone is consuming high amounts of daily alcohol. In addition, we often will recommend a multiple vitamin for individuals, and often sometimes a B100, which will give us all of the B vitamins and help to ensure that we're not running into deficiencies. Magnesium is one of the minerals I wanted to highlight because it's very implicated with sleep and in the production of brain neurotransmitters. It's also very easily depleted by alcohol. And in the past, we were taught that magnesium deficiency wasn't as common, but we really are seeing quite a prevalence of magnesium deficiency, and medications can interact with it as well. So that's another mineral we have to be mindful of when it comes to substance use. Some tips to help manage your nutrition when it comes to substance use. We really want to avoid those long periods going without food and prevent that feeling of hangry. We know when we go too long without eating, it starts to affect our mood and our concentration on our behavior. And our brain really needs glucose every 4 to 5 hours. In addition, we want to prevent any potential low blood sugars, which can start to mimic some of those symptoms that may be very similar to withdrawal symptoms. Eating every 4 or 5 hours also helps to stabilize mood and help reduce anxiety, and in fact may prevent overeating later on in the day. So, what are the foods we need to incorporate for better mental health? When you start to look at eating plans in the literature, styles like Mediterranean diet and portfolio, plant-rich eating that has lots of vegetables and fruits each day, has a variety of proteins from nuts and seeds, legumes, and fish, milk and yogurt, as well as whole grains daily for our B vitamins and iron, and healthy fats seem to be key. We do want to try to avoid some of the ultra processed foods, which have very little nutrients, as well as fast foods and sugary foods. And some of the interesting research show that there's actual physical changes in the brain when the diet is quite high in these sugary fast foods that seem to impact on memory and mental health. So Canada's Food Guide has come up with a plate idea, which nicely encapsulates planning your plate to be half full of vegetables and fruits, trying to get a quarter of the plate protein to make sure you have those amino acids to build those neurotransmitters, and a quarter of the plate to be whole grains, because together, carbohydrates from whole grains and protein actually work together to help raise these neurotransmitter levels. So you can't have these adequate levels without both components. Here's a little test for you. Here's 3 meals. And if you guess the meal on the bottom left, that is the correct meal that gives you the most nutrients here. You'll notice it's from whole foods. It's not from jam or juice. So you're getting the antioxidants and vitamins from whole foods that also have fibers. So that style of eating tends to be more optimal for not only heart health, but also mental health. And interestingly, when we look at the research on substance use, there does seem to be a preference for sweet drinks and caffeine. So many times people will be craving these foods for that fast energy, because as I mentioned, when you have deficiency and you're low in iron or B12, your energy can be quite low. And temporarily, these foods do raise the sugar slightly, and you do feel better for a short time, but it doesn't give you sustainable fuel. So we do want to minimize those sweet drinks, because what happens after the sugar rises quickly, the sugar can also drop quickly, and it can bring on symptoms of hypoglycemia, a low blood sugar, that can be very similar to withdrawal symptoms, and that can worsen your ability to recover. In terms of craving management, going too long without eating, nutritional deficiencies, sugary foods, all can contribute to food cravings. So we do want to aim for regular meals throughout the day, and ideally with protein at each meal. And there's some interesting research showing that protein at each meal may really help quite a bit with cravings and promote prolonged periods of abstinence. We also want to encourage you to connect with your doctor or dietitian if you have one, to get some blood work to assess your nutrient needs to make sure you don't have deficiencies, and if so, to get the appropriate supplementation to correct them. And then ride out the craving wave. There's lots of strategies we can use to help you manage cravings. Cravings tend to hit quite hard within the first 3 to 5 minutes, but then they subside, usually 10 to 15 minutes later. So there's many strategies we can use to help you find things that you can do during those 5 to 10 minutes when the craving is quite strong. One of which many of you might have heard about is using HALT. And this is where we start to do that self-assessment piece to really ask yourself, am I really physically hungry? Or using those ALT acronyms, and is it more related to emotions? Am I eating when I'm angry or lonely or bored or tired? So in summary, we want to make sure that you know that your nutrient needs are higher when you have substance use disorder. We know that food is important for brain and physical health. It can help you feel better, have more energy, help manage some of those other conditions you might be trying to manage, stabilize your mood, but most importantly, reduce the risk of mental health conditions and help ensure you're getting the nutrients you need.
Well, thank you very much for joining us today and giving us this great information. We appreciate your help.
Thanks so much, Jackie.